Hey guys, I'm Amanda Tran and welcome to Self. Today I am here solo repping my merch. Shameless plug for Self. It looks awesome, I think. If you are just listening and not on video, I am wearing a shirt that says Self. Anyway, so today I just wanted to come and have a quick chat about the meaning and the power behind the word yes. So something that I've actively and consciously decided to stop doing is saying yes to everything. And I recognize that probably before this year, mostly this year, it's something that I've started to think about a lot more from about a couple of years ago. But I used to say yes to everything. And that was partly FOMO, partly people pleasing, and just not wanting to disappoint people, right? So whether it was going along to events, I mean, I'm an extrovert, so I do like social settings anyway, but going along to things or participating in stuff that maybe I didn't have the energy for, whatever it was. Anyway, I loved to say, I didn't love to say yes to everything. I just didn't know how to say no. And it was doing me such a disservice because then I would end up spiraling down this bloody rabbit hole of saying yes to things and then feeling annoyed and angry with myself and then feeling resentful sometimes towards other people. So I remember a couple of years ago, I told myself that my yeses had to mean yes. And I mean, that sounds dumb. To clarify, what I mean is I wanted yes to be like a shit yeah, you know. If I say yes, then it means I'm all in, truly. And for a long time, that got muddied up. You know, there were times when absolutely I did mean it, and then times when I really didn't. And so it was affecting how I was showing up for people because I was agreeing to things that I didn't give myself time to reflect upon and really decide if I wanted to be involved with. And it was affecting, and it did actually affect a lot of my relationships because it meant that I was taking stuff on sometimes to a point where I would begin to harbor a lot of resentment. So that was no good. And yeah, I made this decision a couple of years ago, but it was one thing to kind of make the decision and another to see it in effect, right? And something interesting that happened this year was I was in Perth and visiting family, staying with mum, and she had agreed to let me stay, perhaps for longer than what she was comfortable sharing her space with, which is totally okay. You know, we've all got boundaries. And so we actually ended up in this massive fight. And I, you know, through this fight and then we had this fight. A couple of days later, we sit down and debrief and kind of talk about it, which was incredible. And then I recognized, you know, for her, she had said yes to something that perhaps had crossed her boundaries that she didn't really mean. And I recognized that this pattern had showed up throughout her life, but also in my life. And that actually, even though I'd made this conscious decision, I hadn't been implementing it that much, that in fact, in the space of, you know, from when I made the decision to maybe a year and a half after that, especially in the relationship that I was in, I was saying yes to stuff that I truly didn't agree with and didn't mean. And it didn't feel good. I didn't like it. And it was just the strangest thing to come out of that space and to recognize, like, this is something that I don't like and I don't agree with, and yet it feels almost impossible to break out of. So after this fight with mum, it gave me an opportunity to reflect on myself, and even though it was something that I had thought I was actively working on, I recognized I hadn't actually been implementing. So, through our conversation and some reflection, I was like, all right, I want to work on this a bit more actively. So making that decision of yes needs to come free of resentment or expectation of anything in return. And what I started to do was, because saying no is hard, so I didn't just automatically say no. What I started to say was, that's a really great idea. Can you let me think about it? Or can I get back to you? And that has been something that has just allowed me some space to consider things a bit more thoughtfully, to put more consideration into it, and then to decide honestly for myself whether that yes is a fuck yes, or actually it's a no, and I don't want to do this, or I don't want to participate in this, or I don't want to take this on or get involved. And it's had a profound impact on my life, actually, because it's meant that sometimes I've had to disappoint people, and that makes me very uncomfortable. I like seeing people happy. I like being dependable and reliable and being a good friend, family member, whatever, good, right? And this association of saying yes to everything and being the good, insert whatever here, were the two things that I had linked together. So breaking that apart has been interesting. And then recognizing that, hey, I'm going to disappoint people from time to time. And what has shifted for me is that I find myself with much more capacity now to give to the things that I truly feel aligned with, rather than just saying yes to anything. And it doesn't obviously just mean going to certain events, but it means, when I say yes, that there's integrity behind the word. And then it means yes means I'm there and I'm all in. So recently, being in Bali and being in Ahmed, which is surprisingly for a small town, a very social little fishing village, there are always these like social things going on. And a couple of weeks ago, I had a friend come into town. There was this like big group dinner, and I found myself in a space where I actually just needed to be alone. And that little voice came back that was like, push through, just go, because it's the nice thing to do. It's the right thing to do. Is it going to cost you anything? And recognizing in that moment that yes, it was going to cost me, because I was super drained, and saying yes to that would have meant sacrificing something within myself and actually not honoring something that I needed. So I said no. I was like, I don't have the capacity and the energy for this. And I reached out to her, and a few days later we caught up alone, which was fantastic. And we got that time. And actually I was able to better show up for her when we caught up one-on-one. And I explained it to her, and she was very understanding and appreciative of the fact that I didn't go and, push outside of my boundaries, but I found time later on when I felt recharged to see her. So, I guess for me, what's important is giving myself space to think about things and to not rush out of a fear of, FOMO, fear of being left out or wanting to be included, or a fear of disappointing people. It's just creating space. And I guess something that can be quite uncomfortable is sitting with disappointing people who might not expect that from you, or people who might expect a yes and are accustomed to getting a yes from you, or accustomed to, your people pleasing ways, if that's what you have, or don't like being disappointed. And that's okay for them to feel that, that's on them. What's been great for me is recognizing that it's not my job to fix that for them or to change that for them. What's important, I think, is just showing up authentically and being honest about the capacity you have to show up, and then allowing people to respond in the way that, I guess, that they do. So if you're someone who naturally wants to say yes to everything, I don't think that this is, it's absolutely not a bad thing at all. But I guess what's important is to recognize and to find, I guess if you find that it's coming at a cost to you and you feel that, you're pouring from an empty place, then I just encourage you to ask for time to consider things through before saying yes to the next thing. And, you can try my strategy of just asking for time. That's a great idea. Can you just give me a bit of time to think about this? Or let me sit with this for a bit and I'll get back to you. Whatever it is. But I think that if it's too jarring to say no immediately, it's okay to ask for space and ask for that time to think things through, and just ask someone, when do you need an answer by? And that time, I think, makes it a lot easier to carefully think about what your yes is going to mean truly for you, what it's going to cost you. And then if you decide to go through with it, it really means that you can show up for people honestly and authentically, and in a way that really aligns with your own integrity and your yes. And so if this is something you've experienced, or, you're currently navigating, or you want to try, then let me know. I'm keen to hear about different tools and strategies that you're using to make your yeses mean something. Yeah. So just wanted to hop on and have a quick chat about that. Thanks for tuning in. Don't forget to follow the podcast, subscribe, leave a review, hit the thumbs up, do all of these great things, and follow me on Instagram at self_podcast and at Amanda Letran, Letran. And I will see you next week. Thanks for tuning in.